Let us now have contestant number 5, Miss Si Wen Yu. Miss Si, please come onto the stage. In fact, Miss Yu, please come onto the stage.
The title of her speech is Birthday Gift, Birthday Wish. You now have 3 minutes, and you may begin once the bell rings.
Adjudicators, finalists, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Next week, I'll turn 18. When I first heard the news that I may receive $6,000 as a birthday present, I was yelling hooray! But now, after realizing that a plan lacks vision and focus, my response is, Mr. Zhang, thanks, but no thanks. The first problem is that a cash handout is indiscriminate. It lacks focus. Think about an old lady who earns a living collecting and selling waste paper. The cash, which might equal several months of her income, is definitely a blessing for her. As now inflation is roaring, food prices are surging, and transport companies are pushing out their fares. But what about the average citizen? In a recent news report, some interviewees stated that they would spend the money on trips or in other luxuries like iPads. Why is the government subsidizing the shopping sprees in Apple stores while those living in desperate poverty are still thinking twice before they buy a real Apple? The second problem is that the measure lacks vision. It can merely provide very short-term relief. What about the old waste paper collector I've just mentioned? Next year, she will go back to struggling to survive. Will the government be expected to give cash handouts each and every year? Instead, the money should be used to tackle our long-term problems: poverty, an aging population, understaffed hospitals, and a deteriorating environment, to name but a few. Therefore, if I were given $6,000, I would do with it what I would have the government do. Use it to benefit our society. I would donate the money to a charity, such as the Hong Kong World Cancer Research Fund. With more research funding, we can find solutions to our society's problems. It can definitely improve the quality of life for you and me, for the present and the future generations. $6,000 isn't much, but as the Scottish saying goes, a little makes a mickle. Together, we can surely make a difference. As my birthday is approaching next week, I'd like to make an early birthday wish. I wish the government would use this money more wisely. But if it can't do that, then I wish every one of us who gets the $6,000 and doesn't really need it would use the money for a better cause, for the betterment of Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yu. Mr. Seaton will now ask you a question.
Miss Yu, thank you very much, and congratulations on your birthday next week. You set out why you think the government was misguided in the approach it took with the $6,000 handouts to all permanent residents. And as we've seen, they ran into a lot of protests and opposition. Why do you think the government got the public mood wrong, if they did?
Well, I think the major reason why there are a lot of protests after the financial secretary announced the $6,000 handout is because the measure lacks focus. Under the current system, every permanent resident in Hong Kong who aged 18 or over will receive the $6,000. But are we really in need of the $6,000? I don't think so. Some people say they'll spend the dollars on trips or spend money on buying iPads, on iPhones. Apparently, it is not a necessity to them, and the money is not what they really need. So I think to improve, the government should really consider who are the ones who need the money. We should give the money to the ones who are in real need, such as those who find it hard to make a basic living. And therefore, I think if the measure is in focus, then it will be all right. Thank you.
Thank you. A question of freestyle from Ms. Anstus.
Discussions about who will be the next chief executive are starting to heat up. What do you think are the most important qualities that the next chief executive needs to have, and why?
Well, thank you for your question. There are a lot of factors when we decide who the best chief executive are, of course. To me, the most important qualities to be a good chief executive is not his income, it's not his wealth, it's not his knowledge. Is that I think a good chief executive should have a good heart. To be a chief executive, we have to always think about the interest of the people in Hong Kong. We're not only thinking about ourselves, we're not only thinking about the wealthy people, we're not only thinking about the well-educated people. Instead, we should care for the majority of people, for both the rich and the poor. And therefore, I think to be a good chief executive, we have to have a good heart. We have to think about others. We have to think about different groups of people when we are making our policies. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yu. You may now take a seat. Let us